once again, welcome to the first monthly touch of the State Bar of Georgia. It is a new it's a new series of conversations that we're beginning, and we're hoping that they will allow us to find more ways to connect during these times when circumstances require that we don't see each other as frequently and as closely as we're accustomed. While we're getting started, just a couple of technical or logistical notes. You see that we have chosen this to be a Zoom meeting in which we all can see each other. So if you're comfortable, at some point, I will ask you just to switch on your video because it will be lovely to see each other. And a couple of other things. To make it easier to follow who is speaking, there is a setting in Zoom, which is called Speaker View. And to activate Speaker View, if you hover your cursor toward the top right corner, you will see that Speaker View pops up. If you press that little button, what happens is that you will see a big pane in which the person speaking will be highlighted when they're speaking. We recommend using that setting during our gathering to make it easier to know where that voice is coming from, to see the face associated with that voice. A couple of other logistics. The host will keep everyone muted except for the speakers. So we ask all participants to stay on mute unless the host unmutes you. And that will be possible when we have our question and answer time, and we'll have a couple of opportunities to do that. So during that time, please use the raise hand feature. And that feature is available. Okay, so if you press the reactions button toward the bottom of the screen, you will see a waving hand. That is the raise hand feature, which you can raise your hand if you have a question when we get to that, and we will unmute you. And yes, so when you speak, please keep your question brief to give ample time for responses. If you wish to ask a question without speaking up or without being identified, you can send a private message to me, and I'm Plamen Russev. You can even change your name if you wish. The most important thing is that you are able to ask your question. But if for some reason you're hesitant or you're shy, please don't censor your question. Send it to me privately, and I will present it to the speakers. As you may have seen already, there's a little red light on the side. The session is being recorded, and it will become available for public viewing on our Lawyers Living Well website. Please keep that in mind as we go along. The breakout session, which we'll enter into, it'll be small group session in a little while. That will not be recorded. So feel free to be as forthcoming with whatever you wish to ask, share with colleagues there as is comfortable for you. And private messages also sent in the chat also are not recorded or saved. And we will post these instructions in the chat box for your reference. So with all of these logistics out of the way, quickly, my name is Plamen Russev. I am a member of the Attorney Wellness Committee and co-chair of the Mental Wellbeing Subcommittee, and I'm delighted to be co-creating this event of connecting and beginning a really important conversation about our mental health and well-being in the profession, something that is sorely needed and something that we have been shying away for far too long. Well, the time for that is over. The time for connecting, be honest, growing up together into the discomfort that the profession brings is now. So with that, I'm delighted to introduce our first speaker, who is our President Jones, to tell us about the touch idea that she came up with and the intention behind that.
Thank you, Plamen, and thank you all for being here today. We know that you're busy, but hopefully through these discussions, you can help us understand what those obstacles are so that we as a bar can remove them and make all of these opportunities more accessible and available to everyone. So I appreciate being here. I think this is a wonderful idea, and am so grateful for the energy that Javon, that Lynn, that Plamen, that Amber, and every other member of every related, wellness related and lawyer support related committee or program are bringing this year in particular to these offerings that really started over the summer with some podcasts that Lynn spearheaded with the help of Javon and others, including Sarah Cool, who is managing this Zoom meeting today. When I joined the bar, I had been a nurse in my first life. When I joined the bar, I was practicing in a law firm during insurance defense. And one of the things early on, my mentor and boss was the most senior partner in the office. And he was the person who first taught me about touches. He was very much a social butterfly. He was also a horrible chain smoker, as an aside. He was a social butterfly and taught me that doing a great job for your clients is only part of being a good lawyer, that the other parts included connecting with your clients in a way that, frankly, many other older white male attorneys were not necessarily doing, besides going to golf courses and taking folks out to dinner. There were opportunities to send notes for birthdays, to send condolences when somebody passed away in the family, to keep track of significant events, and to, in some way, be a part of that client's life. And I'm talking insurance clients, but we all know that our clients are made up of people, no matter how big the company. They're all made up ultimately of people. So that's where my first understanding of what touches mean in this environment came about. I was really happy. I've been on the Board of Governors and the leadership with the State Bar, starting with the Board of Governors and then the Executive Committee and now President for about 10 years. I think this is my 11th year. I need to really figure that out, but it's either my 10th or 11th year. I was really proud as a Board of Governors member when we established the Wellness Committee. I believe under then President Bob Kaufman. Javon will correct me if I'm wrong. But I believe it was Bob Kaufman. It was surprising to me, as well as made me happy, but it was surprising because I didn't think this group would necessarily understand the value of how being healthy, all around good health, how that you cannot separate that from being a lawyer, being a nurse, being a doctor, being whoever you are in your professional life. You can't separate your health and well-being personally from being a good lawyer, from being a healthy lawyer, from being a lawyer that can best serve your clients. Even then, when the Wellness Committee was established, many members of the bar didn't understand the value. Many members of the bar didn't see the need. I move us forward now, and when I took over as when I was installed as bar president in June, we were facing and in the middle of a couple of pandemics, a couple of health crises. And I was grateful and am grateful for the work that these folks have done, because I don't really hear from those folks now who don't see the necessity in the wellness efforts, in the lawyer assistance program, in the senior lawyers program, in the Lawyers Helping Lawyers program, in the Lawyers Living Well initiative. I don't hear those folks with the same, I don't see the value. This doesn't really seem to be something the bar should be involved with. In fact, it's so very timely and necessary that I think these touches on a monthly basis are the best way, or some of the best ways for us to reach out, make you all aware, and help you by helping make you aware, ask you to help others, make them aware, and maybe we'll get more than I forget the percentage, but it's low. The number of folks who, for example, use our User 6 sessions, free sessions that are part of your bar membership with the State Bar of Georgia, it's not, I don't believe it's 5% of the membership. And again, somebody will correct me with that information, but I know it's very, very low. And that offering's been available for years. So today, when we talk about these touches, what we're talking about is how are we supporting our members? I thought when Plamen contacted me and asked me about what I thought about this topic, I thought that's amazing, that's wonderful. We know as lawyers, I don't know about you, but I feel the pressure normally, and before the crises, I felt the pressure of doing not just the best job, but being the best at what I was doing. And there's pressure to that. There's pressure in the work that we do every day in serving our clients and being available and working with opposing counsel who may not be the nicest and warmest and fuzziest folks for whatever reason. We carry normal stressors as part of the legal profession. We know that we deal with mental health issues as lawyers. We deal with substance abuse issues as lawyers in a lot of ways more than other professions. Statistically speaking, the research is out there. But with this crisis, it brought new and different challenges. And for example, talking to lawyers and law students and judges, and obviously all of these folks are not members of our bar, but I do understand that even though some of us are at home and are not isolated, we have other family members with us, those folks still feel isolated in many ways. I have a dog who doesn't talk to me most of the time. He sleeps about how many hours in a day? 24, 28 hours a day, and doesn't have much conversation for me. It is isolating. That's a different kind of stressor. Dealing with technology that's new and different is a different kind of stressor. Having support staff who are sick, who've been hospitalized, who have family members who've been sick and who are hospitalized, not being able to depend on them and helping and supporting them through this crisis is a stressor. So all that to say, and for anybody who needed, seriously, I'm still trying to figure out why the State Bar cares. Included in our mission at the State Bar of Georgia is the fact that we exist to foster among the members of the bar of the state the principles of duty and service to the public, to improve the administration of justice, and to advance the science of law. How in the world can we support the principles of duty and service? How in the world can we improve the administration of justice or advance the science of law if we are not best equipped mentally, physically, psychologically, spiritually to do so? So the last comment I have about that is I hope to learn today how to better deal with my stress, how to access the support that is provided by the State Bar, because to date I have not ever used my 6, and I plan to use them this bar year, and help us understand, most importantly in my mind, what the real obstacles are to all of us accessing these great resources. Because once we identify those obstacles, we can then address them and remove them. And in the end, what matters most is that we continue to encourage and support each other and care for each other. This is a necessity, especially today. So thank you all for being here.
Indeed. And thank you, President Jones, for bringing together some really important themes and topics that we will be exploring a little bit more. But before we do that, I wanted to quickly introduce Javon Hicks. Javon, can you say hello or say something so you can pop up on the screen so people see you?
Good afternoon. Hello.
Thank you for joining us, Javon. Javon has been one of the columns of really important people supporting and advancing attorney well-being, attorney wellness, all of the initiatives at the bar. She is one of the crucial co-creators going forward with the touches. So this is an important face and a very important person for us that we'll be seeing more from. So great to have you join us today, Javon.
I am very excited to be here. I'm very excited that we are able to get this started. And I hope that people not only enjoy this camaraderie that we're building, but would also spread the word if they get value out of it. Like Dawn said, we're in this new phase and we are missing out on what we started to take for granted a little bit on just how valuable it was just to be in the same space with someone, other people, and the ability to breathe the same air without it being a bad thing. So hopefully just having and being able to see each other's faces. So I like that you ask people if they feel comfortable in turning on their screens. That even adds a little bit more, just being able to see you and connect in that way when I can't be with you. So we hope that these touches that was stated, the term comes from Dawn when we were struggling in our wellness meeting to have something to do monthly. And Dawn was the one that said monthly touches. And so that's why we're here now. And I look forward to our today and going forward.
Thank you, Javon. And with that, let's move into the juicy part, the real meat of our meeting today. It is acknowledging the fact that we have, as a population, as a profession, we're facing quite a few mental health challenges that on the average tend to be higher, more frequent than the general population. At the same time, we have certain resources that are available and that are at our disposal, yet we're not using them. And what we are looking to begin to explore today is what is the root of our resistance to using our resources, to finding ways to be supported so that we can be fully mentally, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically prepared to face the difficulties of the profession. It's important to acknowledge this is not an easy profession. It's an understatement, even as I'm saying it. And it's also important to recognize that how shy the challenges of the profession have made us on the personal front. That explains why so many of us are still not showing our faces. As others mentioned, I'm hoping that our shyness will gradually dissolve and we'll become more comfortable doing that. But that's a very natural, very organic process which will take its time. We're beginning it, we're continuing it, we're feeding this process today. Now, let's move into a reminder of our two major resources that are available to us: the Lawyer Assistance Program and the Peer Program, also known as Georgia Lawyer Helping Lawyers. And to do that, here in our gathering today is my colleague Jim Hogan, who is a past president of the Cobb County Bar Association, who has practiced law for almost 40 years, mostly as a solo practitioner. So he brings a very unique perspective from being a solo practitioner and the challenges that solo practice introduced. He's also a member of the Georgia Bar's Lawyer Assistance Program, Senior Lawyers and Member Benefits Committees. He crucially helped establish the Cobb County Lawyers Helping Lawyers Committee in February of 2009, and is one of the co-founders of the Georgia Lawyer Helping Lawyers, or the Georgia Peer Program. So I couldn't think of a better person to tell us about the Lawyer Assistance Program and the Peer Program. So Jim, take it away. You have to unmute yourself, please. I'll be reminding people to do that.
You got me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Plamen. It's an honor to be here, to be able to talk about these subjects that are near and dear to me. The practice of law has changed dramatically in the 40 years that I've been involved in it. What you're starting to see, what I'm starting to see, is a lot more stress. There's just a lot of issues between lawyers and clients, lawyers and lawyers in the court. And some ways lawyers are able to deal with it and some aren't. Anyway, the Georgia Bar has a couple of programs that help it. You've got the Lawyers Assistance Program. It's established, it's a confidential service that is outsourced by a group called Court Care. And it's available to all, I think this is right, 38,716 members of the Georgia Bar Association. And what you're seeing, unfortunately, and that's why we're having this talk, and hopefully just letting you know, you hear the term use your six. Use your six is, you've got 6 prepaid counseling sessions every year. And I could see the pushback, you know, a little concerned about going. One thing you've got to keep in mind is this is completely confidential. There's no pipeline to discipline. That's very important to members on the committee. And certainly if we found out about it, that this was going on through Court Care or whatever, we would put a stop to it, because we count on the confidentiality of our members to be able to use these services. So it's available to any member, and you get to, again, what they do is they'll put you with a counselor that is better able to handle whatever issue you may have going on. It may be depression, maybe stress. All of us have stress. I don't think that a lawyer, no matter what field you're in, you feel a lot of stress. I know I do. I know throughout the years, sometimes it's almost unbearable. But you know, you manage to as a solo, and I know that from my study, most of the lawyers in Georgia are solos, believe it or not. I did not realize that. But they're a unique breed, and they have unique challenges. They need sometimes to seek help, and sometimes they don't. One thing I don't ever want to hear these words uttered is, I wish I had only called you before I did this, before I do that. The cases that I've dealt with in the past usually have just, you know, they've gone too far, and now there's not a whole lot you can do about it except try to walk them through whatever they're trying to walk them through. So I hope that members will start to realize that we've got sources available to help them. As far as lawyers helping lawyers, the peer-to-peer program, you may not want to go counseling, you may not want to go through that process, but you'd like to be able to talk to a fellow lawyer about what's going on in your life, your family, finances, all this kind of stuff that just is near and dear to our hearts. How do we deal with this stuff? And so we created Lawyers Helping Lawyers for that purpose. You can either, I don't know that we do this, Lynn, but I'd like to see it, maybe post the members. So someone could actually go online, see that member, say, hey, I'd like to talk to them. They reach out. But right now, I hope I'm not speaking out a lot, but right now what we do is we've got a hotline, and so does the Lawyers Assistance. We've got a hotline that you contact, and they will put you with a lawyer that has maybe the same season of life, same geographical area, that kind of thing, to just kind of walk you through some of the issues that are going on in your life. You just want to talk to somebody. That's Lawyers Helping Lawyers. I'm going to stop there. I could go on forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. No, you're absolutely right. We can keep talking forever about these programs. Oh, and I'm going periodically to remind us all just to, except for the speaker, to mute yourself if you're not speaking. So we can talk forever, and we have been talking forever about these programs. But here's the reality. We are not using our resources. So here I am appealing to you, dear colleagues, as problem solvers. Here's the problem. We have needs. What gets in the way of our meeting our needs with our own resources that are available to us, that have even been specifically designed for us, so that there is very robust structure of confidentiality protection. There is a very robust structure of ensuring appropriate support received from either colleagues or therapists who are qualified, appropriately qualified to provide help with the specific issues. So what gets in the way of that? What makes it so difficult for us as lawyers to reach out? One level of difficulty is asking for help. Another level of difficulty is receiving help, even when it is offered. Okay, so this is our time for connecting in a smaller setting. We're going to break out into small groups of about 3 to 4 people, and one of our capable hosts will help us be put together in a group. This is a great opportunity for you to show your face to your other colleagues. So we're going to speak for 10 minutes about exactly that question. Why is it so difficult for us to use the help and the support, especially when it comes to our mental health, well-being, any aspect of support? What are these obstacles? What are your individual obstacles? So we will have 10 minutes. We will send 3-minute reminders so that no single person takes over the conversation and everyone has the opportunity to share. Please make this conversation as dynamic and interactive as you wish. We will also receive a 60-second or 1-minute notice before the breakout session ends. So with that, have fun, find out what's getting in the way, and be ready to share, be ready to contribute your observations when we come back together in the big room. Welcome back. I think we're still coming back. I'll give us all a few moments to come back from our small group sessions. I hope and trust that you started some really good conversations. We rarely have the opportunity to talk about this. So I have no doubt that some really valuable things started coming up. So I invite you to start sharing in the chat just anything that you've identified as a specific obstacle. Just put it in the chat so it's available, so we know, so it's named, so it's no longer lurking in the dark and it's, you know, controlling us kind of like from subconscious depths of our psyche. We're bringing these things forward so we know how to address them. And to help us with that, we have some really fantastic and very brave, courageous, and open colleagues who have agreed to share how they have confronted these obstacles that they have experienced in their own life. So with that, I'm inviting our first of 3 speakers going into more personal stories of that, Megan Rittle, who is a partner at Smith, Welch, Webb & White. Practice focuses on civil matters, employment, and education law. She's been practicing for 8 years, and she loves helping clients problem solve. She's also an avid runner turned triathlete turned marathon hopeful. And she also wrote a fantastic article that was published in the June issue of the Georgia Bar Journal. We will distribute a copy at the end of the session, but that is an article in which Megan shared some of her own journey in stepping forward and using the 6 sessions. So Megan, please, delighted to have you join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Plamen, and thank you everybody for joining us today. I'm so glad to see so many people here. So I'll jump right into my personal experience and kind of the things that I was able to take away from it. About 5 years ago, I was getting into the process of getting divorced. At the time, I was also a divorce attorney. So that kind of played into some of my feelings about taking care of myself and getting counseling and things like that. So as a divorce attorney, anybody who has done one divorce or 100 divorces, you know that people are sometimes in the worst part of their life. And there are some really, really nasty divorces. Thankfully for me, I was not experiencing a nasty divorce. For the most part, it was amicable. We both knew it just wasn't working. However, that didn't mean that it wasn't a huge loss for me. It felt like a huge failure. I felt really a lot of shame about getting divorced. You know, like both of my parents have been married for 40 years. My grandparents were married for like what felt like 80 years, but I think it was closer to 60 on both sides. So, you know, my brother's happily married. It just felt like such an embarrassment and that I was such a failure. And so I was kind of hiding in my work, that I felt like at least when I came to work, that was a place where I didn't have to think about it. I didn't have to talk about it. I didn't tell anybody at work about it because I was just going to power through it and hide in my work. Well, at some point, the senior partner in my firm kind of got it out of me. We were on a long trip to go take depositions in South Georgia, and he got it out of me that I was getting divorced. And he was really, he offered a turning point for me because he told me, you need to go get help. You need to go talk to somebody about it. And I protested and resisted, and I was basically like, you know, I have a sister and a mom and some best friends, and those are my counselors. And he was like, no, that's not the same thing. You need to talk to somebody who doesn't have a stake in it. And so finally, after he insisted several times, I did do that, and it was definitely one of the best things I ever did for myself. I'll say going into it, and a part of me resisting it was, I'm like, I'm not crazy. I don't need counseling. I'm not depressed. I'm just getting divorced, you know? So I felt like I was being self-indulgent by going to get therapy when I'm like, this isn't a real problem on the scale of people who have real problems. And that's not a correct way of thinking, because therapy is not for people who have a diagnosis or people who, you know, have any sort of mental disease. That's not the only thing that it's for. It can also just be to deal with the stressors that come with life and just kind of to talk through it. And as my therapist would always say, unpack what you've stored away. And that's really what I did. I was also afraid that that I was going to be judged by the people who knew me or knew that I was going to have counseling. Like, are they going to think I'm crazy because I'm going to get counseling? And is that going to affect my work? Is that going to affect my other relationships, that people are going to see me differently? And surprisingly, everybody was really supportive about it. And years later, that shouldn't be surprising, because people should be supportive of anybody who's seeking help. But my family was very supportive. All my friends were supportive. And the people at work who know about it, and now the entire bar who reads the journal knows about it. People have been overwhelmingly supportive about me taking care of me. So I had a few things that I wanted to make sure I talk about, and I don't want to take up too much time, but time was one of my big concerns. Other than how I was going to be perceived by other people, how I was going to be perceived by myself, taking the time to do it was a huge concern for me. Thankfully, the senior partner who insisted that I do it kind of gave me that permission, and I did take the time. For me, it ended up being a 3-hour process to drive to the appointment, have the appointment, and drive back. But I will say now I have taken advantage of telehealth, which has become a game changer. In my breakout session, I was just telling the group that I was with how much I hate being on Zoom meetings from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. However, I will say one of the Zoom meetings that I do like being a part of is a telehealth Zoom meeting. I've done the telehealth counseling, which has been helpful. I've also done just regular telehealth. I had poison ivy in the spring and it was so great. I would have just suffered through that for the 3 weeks that it took. But instead I got on a computer, I showed it to the doctor and she was like, okay, your prescription's on its way. So just telehealth in general, I think is one of the great things that has come out of the pandemic. But I think, you know, I prioritize time to work out. I prioritize time to go to the grocery store. So it's silly to say I can't prioritize time to take care of my mental health. And I would tell everybody else that too. It's, you got to take care of you in order to be able to take care of everything else. And I think that was one of the biggest things that I was able to take away, is that that time is important. So I'll back over to Plamen. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. You're actually bringing out some really important points. And by the way, for all the participants, I invite you, every time you hear something that resonates for you, either raise your hand, even though we may not see you, or at least do a check mark on a piece of paper. It's really important to hear how shared and how similar these experiences are. And what I wanted to emphasize in what Megan shared about is this common misconception that seeking help, especially as an attorney, especially as someone who is trained to present an invulnerable front, being able to be super person, handle it all, the realization that we need just as much support as the incredible amount of support as we are giving to our clients. So what is unfair about that? To me, that seems like creating a more equal balance. Also, hugely important, Megan, you spoke about a systemic issue of time. How can I find time in my billable hours environment to go and do that? So the systemic level of support you received was from the supervisor who said, yes, go, this is important. So an invitation from to all of us who are in this role is, please consider, if you have an important decision-making power, how can you use that decision-making power to support someone and encourage them to take care of themselves? It's hugely important so we don't keep paying very high price for the profession. And then you also implicitly said, you don't have to have a formal diagnosis to look for and benefit significantly from mental health support. And we will be exploring this a little bit more. Do you want to speak briefly about how you overcame your confidentiality concerns the first time you used the program?
Oh, sure, absolutely. So I've actually called the program several times. The first time I called it was actually for a colleague. I was very, very concerned. And I don't know if everybody knows that. You can call and they can walk you through, like if you have concerns about a colleague, they can kind of walk you through some tips for maybe how to deal with it. So I had a colleague who was engaging in some self-injurious behaviors, and I was very, very concerned, and I had no idea what to do. So I called, and the first thing they did was, and it is, as Jim said, it is an outside entity. So it's not anybody with the bar. They did ask me for my bar number and kind of like my phone number, my name. And of course that just alarm bells for me. I was like, oh, why do they want my bar number? Well, they do need to verify that you are a member of the bar, because we don't want everyone taking advantage of our free services, because then the cost may escalate and it won't be free anymore. So that absolutely made sense, but it absolutely remained confidential. And then when I've called again to use my 6, again, same questions, but it does remain confidential. And you kind of end up, after you call, for the Use Your 6 specifically, they will give you recommendations of counselors in your area, and kind of you kind of tell them what you're looking for in a counselor. Me specifically, I was looking for a female. I didn't want to go see a male counselor, so they gave me the names and numbers of a couple of female counselors in my area who I could then contact and set up the appointment with them. And they work through the LAP program with, I think Jim said the company is something Corp, but
Corp
they work.
Care.
There we go, Corp Care. They work through that company, and that's how they're compensated for it. So it definitely was confidential, and that was definitely one of my concerns, is that I was about to get a call from the bar to say, hey, we'd like to put your license on hold while you figure out your life.
Thank you. I don't think you could have said it better. We create these monsters in our heads about situations, and I think we have done this with the confidentiality concern. I think if each one of us honestly, it's a valid concern. At the same time, there is a lot of information that we have consistently been offering to address that concern. So at one point, we have to become honest with ourselves. Am I using the concern about confidentiality as creating my own obstacle and creating my own excuse for not getting help, for not reaching out and keeping myself in this difficult place? It's a personal question. There's no judgment about the answer, but it's important to become aware if we have turned confidentiality into this bigger than it is thing. With that, I also need to acknowledge that Megan will need to leave us early. She is juggling a very busy calendar, like all of us, contributing to the stress that is part of our lives as lawyers. So thank you so much, Megan. And she also mentioned that if you have any follow-up questions specifically directed toward Megan, she's happy to respond to them by email, by phone. So please feel free to connect with Megan.
And I just put my email in the chat. So thank
Fantastic.
you. Have a great meeting.
Thank you. And thank you so much for joining us and sharing. So
You're welcome.
Hopefully. Take care. Okay. I'm very, very delighted to introduce another colleague who has done an incredible amount of support and individual work. Judge Shondeana Morris, who is a judge on the Stone Mountain Judicial Circuit of the Superior Court of DeKalb County. She is involved with many professional, civic, and religious organizations, a member of the State Bar of Georgia, the American Bar Association, the Georgia Association of Black Women Attorneys, DeKalb Bar, DeKalb Lawyers, Gate City Bar Association, the Lawyers Club of Georgia. She serves on several committees for the State Bar of Georgia. I'm delighted that she is a member of the Attorney Wellness Committee and also of the mental well-being subcommittee. Whew, our names are sometimes so long. And her contributions and her experience in speaking about mental health has been really crucial, especially given the position and the place she occupies in the legal system. So with that, I'm turning it over to Judge Shondeana Morris to tell about her own journey and how she overcame her own obstacles with looking for help, being in a prominent role.
Thank you, Plamen, and thank you, Dawn, for our monthly touches. I think this is like just really tremendous. So for this, since we are being candid and touching each other in a virtual manner, please call me Shondeana, and I just want to have those candid, hopefully candid, comfortable conversations. For me, it started quite some time ago. I was practicing law for over 20 years. I started out at the Fulton County District Attorney's Office. And at that time, I was working in the major case unit, and my father committed suicide. It was unexpected, and it really, really threw my life off. It took me by surprise, and it was a punch that I did not think that I would recover from. When that happened, I will tell you all that I was like I said, it was new in my career, and I was still trying cases, trying homicide cases, and trying to do everything that I could to fulfill my duties and responsibilities at my job, and not dealing with the loss of my father. And in addition to that, during that time, I had my family, my mother, my grandparents, my aunts and uncles telling me, don't tell anybody that your dad committed suicide, just tell them that he had a heart attack. And so they made it very difficult for me because I didn't understand why no one wanted to share that. And so they just said, it's not a good look. You know, people will judge you, they'll treat you differently, and you are new in your career, so you don't want to do that. So what I would do is I started working like around the clock, literally almost 24/7. I would stay at the office until 3 a.m. just preparing cases. And I was very successful. I would try the cases, receive convictions. But what people didn't know is that during that time, I would, you know, if we were pre-trying a case or something like that, I would, you know, quickly excuse myself and go in the bathroom and just cry. And then I would wash my face and come back in as if nothing happened. And I kept doing this and doing this and doing this for quite some time. Um, when my father lost his life, my husband, well, at the time, my fiance and I had a wedding schedule that was scheduled about 6 weeks before my dad took his life. And so I postponed that. But as I'm still working and I'm doing all the various things to be successful and to hide it from everybody, I was physically killing myself. So I started having all of these unexplained health issues. I was in and out of the hospital, had to have surgeries because they thought I had an appendicitis, which it wasn't. It was the stress and not dealing with it. So fast forwarding, my husband and I, after years of finally married, and we got married in 2006, and we started planning our family. And so we have a beautiful son. His name is Joe. He's 10 years old now. But during that time, when around the first couple of months of Joe's life, I was having difficulties. Couldn't sleep. I wasn't able to nurse properly, and it was just bad, and I was just feeling sick and anxious all the time. So I went to my OBGYN, and I was explaining to her what was going on, and she said, I think you need to talk to somebody. She said, so I'm going to send you to a psychiatrist, and we'll go from there. So I was like, okay, I don't know what a psychiatrist has to do with why I'm not able to produce milk, but okay. So I went to the psychiatrist, and after I talked to the psychiatrist about the things that were going on, the psychiatrist was like, well, I think you have a host of various things going on, such as anxiety, post-traumatic stress syndrome, postpartum depression, everything that you could think of. And, as we are lawyers, we are often resistant. And so I just told the psychiatrist, and I said, well, with all due respect, I respect your expert opinion, but I don't think I'm gonna come back, and I disagree with you. And so I didn't go back, but I was still having the same medical issues and challenges. And so finally one day, someone encouraged me to go see a therapist, and I did. And that was the best thing that I could have done for myself. And I was just able to talk to the therapist about all of the things that were going on. And it was somebody that worked for me. And as such, that helped me to on the road to my new normal and dealing with all of the things that occurred. So fast forwarding, it was actually the State Bar of Georgia and the Chief Justice Commission on Professionalism. This was, I think it was during Bob Kaufman's year, as Don stated, that Bob Kaufman was the one that was really encouraging wellness. And so I said, you know, I want to get involved. I'm ready. And I didn't really share anything about my dad, but it was the state bar, one of our state bar members, Alvarita Hanson, that asked me to speak on a panel. And I was like, well, what am I going to talk about? And she was like, well, just share what happened. And I was like, oh, I don't know about that. But I was able to do it. That was the first time that I talked about what happened with my dad and how it impacted my life. And from there, there were a number of people that after approached me and just told me about some things that they had been dealing with, and they were able to get assistance and just talk about it and get help and support. And people called after that and the same. So that's what introduced me to the State Bar's Wellness Committee. And I will tell you, in terms of using your six, like Dawn, using your six, I have not used the lawyer assistance program. However, I have someone very close to me knows about my journey, who is a lawyer. And I told them about it about a year ago when they were having some issues that just stress related actually. And they used it, and they are still with that particular therapist now, love it. And so much so that I reached out to that therapist yesterday for something totally unrelated. And so it works. It really truly works. Another thing that works is peer-to-peer. I think Plamen mentioned that in terms of with the State Bar of Georgia attorneys that appeared with, you know, it's confidential, but it is a connection that you feel comfortable with. And so I am very open about this. So I can tell you, I'm involved with peer-to-peer, and my peer is Lynn, who you all will hear from shortly. And with Lynn, you know, no matter what, I can email or call Lynn anytime, and she can do the same. And we can just have conversations. We talk about anything. And if it's a bad day, I can say, Lynn, you know what? I'm having a bad day because X, Y, and Z. And sometimes, you know, we get so caught up with, you know, our schedules, whether that's work or with the children, or, you know, for me, I have 2 young children, and doing this virtually and everything else, it is a lot. And so it is good to have that connection or that peer that you can reach out to and just get that refresh or recharge no matter what. So that's it for a nutshell with me.
Thank you so much, Shondeana. I think it is really, it's so powerful to hear you speak about such a crucial event, and also how you basically reached a really difficult breaking point and needed this external push by a doctor to go and look for help. I am pretty confident that this is a very common story among us. We are teetering on the edge of breakdown, and sometimes it's the breakdown itself that pushes us to look for help. Sometimes it's, you know, hope another person who notices it and is insistent, and just encourages or does whatever, so we take that next step and look for help. You also have, and you also highlighted how beneficial the peer program is, because it has a different level of flexibility and a very organic nature of support, which is quite different from the more structured relationship with the therapist that we receive in the LAP program, the Use Your Six, any type of therapeutic work. So this is one thing to keep in mind, that the peer program offers a different type of dynamic interaction with someone who is, you know, very much in like very similar shoes, very similar situations, fellow soul. You also have a fantastic response, actually, about the concern of other people's perceptions and how sometimes other lawyers reinforce these perceptions about, appearing weak or, not confident enough being a lawyer. So would you share how you deal with that concern,
Well,
other people's expectations?
I will tell you, Plamen, as I was going through everything years ago, I would hear comments that some of our colleagues would make, like about other, people like, oh yeah, this person, they're weak, or, they can't handle it, or I can't believe that they're taking time off because they lost a loved one, or they're taking so much time off. And so you start to think, I wonder if, people will not look at, my work ethic or the things that I do, and just kind of solely base that on what the experience is that I'm going through. And I think that has caused some of the resistance of, just being open and transparent about what's going on in your life. And I am in a much different place now. And that's why I haven't been in the hospital for any issues like that. And when I say I'm in a much different life, I think it's more important for us to be open and honest and transparent. I mean, you don't have to obviously, disclose all your medical history or anything like that. But when I say open and transparent, it is more important if you need to talk to somebody or share, you need to reach out to someone who you feel comfortable with. And whether that's using your Six or peer-to-peer, that's why we are here. There is no better profession than our profession, but we can't do it by ourselves. I don't know if you all know, but about 2 weeks ago, one of our own, assistant district attorney in Columbus, he took his life in his office. And so everything that I have read, and people who have, who knew him, I just talked to, one of our members not too long ago, was saying that he seemed very happy. He was the one that was always extremely positive. All of the prosecutors could go to him for and seeking advice and just all of these things. And so it has come to a shock for people that well, what happened? And so that's why I just think, for me, I'm open and transparent. So I tend to say what's on my mind and how I feel. If I can help, then I will help. And so that's why I just share. And I just got to the point where it was just more important for me to be open and honest with what's going on versus pretending that things were okay and I could deal with everything when I couldn't. And so that's what I want to strongly encourage, everyone here, everybody wants, we want all the same things. We might have adversarial positions, but we are still a family and connected with our profession. So that is what I would like to share with everyone.
I couldn't thank you enough, Shondeana, because what you're doing is not just talking about, but actually modeling a very different type of strength and courage. The strength and courage to be open, to be courageous, to be vulnerable, a quality that we do not associate with the profession in general, and in fact are trained to appear invulnerable. And so, so by this, I think we can take away not to trust the facades that our colleagues are presenting us with. We know we can probably scratch a little bit if we really care about our colleagues, and they might look always great and happy. What is really going on behind that happy face? This is cultivating together a level of trust, a different level of trust in the profession that is crucial when we're presented with so many challenges on so many levels. So thank you so much for sharing about that. And we're going to hear now from Lynn Garson, your peer, who is a chair of the Lawyer Assistance Program and also one of the founders of the Georgia Peer Program. And as counsel at Baker Hostetler, Lynn practices healthcare law, focuses on transactions and contracts for healthcare organizations. But really importantly, she's a mental health advocate, tireless speaker. She's written 2 books outside of questions of law, which is part of this remarkable broad perspective that she brings. And I'm delighted to hear from Lynn and see what we can learn from your experience, Lynn.
Thanks, Plamen. Dawn, thank you so much for thinking of this, and all the other speakers, everybody who's on the call. So I've had a long time now listening to everybody and being able to synthesize and think about what I wanted to say. There's been so much rich discussion, and there's so much overlap, Plamen, like you said, so much overlap. Everything everybody said, wearing the mask, not, wanting anybody to know that I wasn't perfect, going to therapy when a partner at my law firm said, you need to go, being encouraged to go. So many similarities. And we've also talked about the spectrum, I think, of who goes for care. So any amount of stress, whatever's going on, we're encouraging everybody to reach out, use your 6, use the Pure program, no matter what it is. People are very stressed right now. Whatever you were doing 9, 10 months ago is exponentially more difficult. Every step you take, every breath you take, your kids, like you said, Shondeana, your kids are at home, technology is a challenge. There are so many stresses out there. So, anyone can use these programs for that. I am a person who does and did suffer from a different level along the spectrum. I've been diagnosed with everything, from A to Z practically. Enough so that I actually accept some of the diagnoses and reject others. I've gotten, knowledgeable enough about it. I've been diagnosed with bipolar 1 and bipolar 2, which I think is actually not possible. So, had to draw the line somewhere. But all my life, really, I had issues. I had an eating disorder, I think, from the time I was 4. And believe it or not, I knew wouldn't have known what to call it, but I had an eating disorder. I had cycles of depression since I was at least 16, and, just lived that way for a long time until I was encouraged to go and get help. One thing Plamen and I had talked about is, why did I ultimately go? What made me go? And over time, what has kept me going? And like I said, I've had a minute through everyone talking to think about it. And I will say that I am a creature of comfort. I am really a creature of comfort. I don't like to do anything uncomfortable, but I will tell you, I can live with a tremendous amount of discomfort because it's familiar. I can do it. I can do it till the cows come home. And I can, just like you were saying, everybody has said, you wouldn't know a thing was wrong with me. But I had to, in every case, when I've really, really done the work and gotten the help, it's been because I reached a tipping point where it wasn't worth it anymore. It was too hard. It was too difficult. And I was willing to be uncomfortable and to do the work that it was going to take rather than be that uncomfortable. I couldn't live that way anymore. So that's really that's always been my tipping point. And that's true to this day. As much therapy as I've done, and I've been in therapy for years and years and years, it's still a cyclical thing. And there's still times, as in the present moment. This is one of several occasions where I've been called on to speak at a time where I just wasn't doing well. And there have been times where I thought, well, just wear the mask, tell everybody you're fine. And I haven't done it because what's the point? You know, what's the point in that? So even now, I'm not fine. And yet I'm a little bit unwilling to do certain things. I mean, Shondeana and Javon and I were on a call just what, 3, 4, 5 days ago. And Shondeana gave a whole list of, well, you know, here's a wellness thing I read, and you can, you know, breath work, and you can do yoga and good nutrition and good sleep habits. And later, when the three of us were talking, I said in my head, I was going, unwilling, 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 unwilling. And it was just true. At some point I'll be willing. I'm willing to do certain things. Javon gave me, you know, I've known of it before, but it was good timing, the gratitude, you know, list, which is always a good thing. But, you know, that's what it is for me. I've just got to reach the point where I am no longer willing to live with this level of discomfort.
Thank you, Lynn. That's really powerful, and to hear how important this personal decision is, but also how each one of us comes to this personal decision in our own way. It is a very individual, sometimes very circuitous road. And so I'm really grateful that everyone has shared their own version of that path, because that not only helps us see the similarity, but hopefully that will encourage more of us, you know, to keep going, to keep finding our way to getting that support. One other thing that I think might be really helpful, just because of your rich experience in working with a therapist, is to help us begin to undo some of our stereotypical expectations, and maybe some of our limited ways in which we think about therapy and what the relationship with the therapist actually is like. That in fact we have a lot more control over what happens and how it happens in that relationship.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we have complete control. As long as you understand that, you know, it's just like I've dated over time, and there have been times where I've thought, well, I don't have a choice. You know, I have to do what this person, you know, wants me to do, because otherwise they won't like me. I always have a choice. You know, that I've taken a lot of therapy to realize that in every situation, I can make a choice of how I'm going to respond or react. And in fact, it's up to me to be responsible and to make those choices. Therapy is no different. I would say, first of all, to use the dating analogy again, it is a little bit like dating. It's building a relationship. The first one may not be the right one. If that happens 3 or 4 times in, you know, you're not clicking with somebody. I've done it before. I don't like it because I personally invest a lot of hope that this person is going to be able to help me. But if it so happens that that's not the right person, I've moved on. I've done it more than once, more than twice, probably more than 3 times. I have been with the therapist that I'm with now since about 2010, maybe 2009. And it's a relationship like anything else. If she asks me something that I don't want to answer, there are times where I say, I don't want to answer that. Well, then the next question is, we become curious about why I didn't want to answer it. And that's a whole other road to go down. And I've been with her a long time. I've been in therapy a long time. And, you know, I laugh because I know the next question that's coming. But, you know, I can be resistant. I will also say, and there are different forms of therapy, and Plamen wrote just beautifully about it in the current bar issue, I think. It's a sidebar on an article, and it is just wonderful because most people may not know that, but there are many, many different types of therapy, and people can become knowledgeable about it and then pick what they think suits them. This therapist suits me. I laugh because I think I asked her 8 years in what kind of therapy we were doing. I didn't know, but I just knew that it worked. And I will say, and that's a key phrase that I just said, or word right there. It worked. It's work. That's another reason I'm occasionally resistant to doing therapy. It's not play and it's not easy. It's work, and you get out what you put in. There are times where I feel like everything in life is hard. Why does this have to be hard too? And if I feel that way, I'm welcome to say, I don't feel like doing difficult work right now. It's my money to spend. And if it's the bar, for the 6 prepaid sessions, you're not even spending any money. But, it's not particularly useful, I would say, not to really do the work. But since I've been doing it for so many years, I will cycle in and out. And there are times when I'm, more willing and less willing, but it's up to me. It's up to me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. If you haven't noticed in the chat, there are links to the articles, both the article that Megan wrote in June, for the June issue, and to the October issue, the article that Lynn just referenced. Actually, she's the author of the big article. So this gathering grew out of our awareness that, yes, we know about those services, yet we're not using them. We have just a couple of minutes left. Thank you to everyone who has submitted questions. I tried to, as much as I knew that the speakers could speak to those points, to address them. So I'm hoping that is at least some information to begin to help you find your own comfort with these obstacles and finding your own way of overcoming them. Does someone have a burning question they'd like to ask before we wrap up? Please don't hesitate. And raise your hand using the reactions button and the hand wave icon. And we will unmute you. Okay, I'm not seeing any raised hands yet. Amber, is that right? Okay, good. I will not push this time. We will have more opportunities for this type of gathering and this type of conversation. This, as everyone said, is just the beginning. It's really important for us to keep coming together, keep engaging in this way. So in closing, I'll just love to open it to our speakers. If you have, a couple of words to wrap up, a couple of words of encouragement, anything you'd like to share, please go ahead.
This is Dawn. The only comment I have, besides just being grateful that we are having these conversations, and knowing that there are even more members of the bar out there who will need to hear this. I distinctly remember on the executive committee, when I joined the executive committee several years ago, a discussion about how much these sessions were costing the bar. We're going through a budgetary process like we do beginning in January of every year. And what's funny is I wish we were close to bankrupting the State Bar of Georgia, because the majority of folks use their sessions. I would love for that to be a problem that we have to deal with. I would absolutely love that to be a problem. And I'll just leave that there. In the meantime, don't you ever worry about your sessions going away. But it would be nice to have a problem with too many people using them versus, sincerely, not many of us using them. And again, I'll say all day, I'm using my 6 this year.
Plamen, thank you. You did an excellent job of putting this together and keeping us on track. And you've got this job as long as you want it, I would imagine. But really, thank you. You did a great job. And the speakers, I was very blessed to have had you speak on those topics. It meant a lot to me, hearing those words. And I think we've all been there. Judge Morris, I know exactly. I've had family members in that same situation. So I thank you.
Thank you so much. I don't want the job if I don't have such an incredible set of colleagues to work with. So I really couldn't be more grateful. I couldn't be more grateful also to all the participants who joined. However you spoke, however you participated, this is truly important. Please share with our colleagues that this recording will be available. They can watch it on their own time. It will be posted on the media section of the Lawyers Living Well site. And we look forward to seeing you at the next monthly touch on November 17th. It'll be in the evening, 7 p.m. if I remember correctly. Anyway, information about that will be forthcoming. Thank you for joining us. Please take care. Please help each other. Take care of ourselves and of each other, and be well.